Independent Talk, 1100 KFNX is your headquarters for election 2020.
Good morning. It's Sunday morning. This is KFNX's election 2020 coverage. What we are attempting to do through these interviews is to give you a good look at every candidacy, give you an opportunity to get to know the candidate as well as the perception or the positions that that they hold going into the election, and most importantly, to help you to be a more informed voter. We are delighted this morning to have Nicholas Tutora with us. Nicholas is the Republican candidate for the 9th Congressional District race. Nicholas, good morning.
Good morning. Pleasure to be with you.
Good to have you here. Generally, the president does the State of the Union, but I'm going to ask you to do a State of the Union as you see it and how it fits into the campaign that you're running.
Well, right now, our State of the Union is turbulent. Trump had things moving along very well. And when that election year showed up, they moved right from impeachment right into COVID and then into riots. So there was really no way that they were going to let him go into an election year with a strong economy and people feeling good about the country. So they really basically have pulled out all the stops they can. And I'm 57 years old, and I've never seen anything like this, with rioting in the streets, attacks openly on the police, lawlessness where citizens are calling for the police and nobody's showing up. They feel they have to come out and defend, which they have to come out and defend their own property. So our liberty, I think, is really at stake. I don't think it's an overstatement. This election, everything is really on the line. If this election is not won by people who support freedom and liberty, the country as we know it is pretty much gone.
The last election cycle, all the polls said that Hillary Clinton was going to win. And election day, people got a surprise.
Right.
And the explanation of the surprise was that certainly there's a large group of people in the center of the country away from the two coasts, and that they think differently and they hold certain things closer to the vest than the coastal elites. And there was also, of course, the analysis that these people didn't tell the pollsters the truth because They didn't want to get a ration of manure for doing it. Watching all that's happened recently, do you have a sense that that same set of factors could occur again this year, that the majority is not out there demonstrating in the streets, they're watching it at home horrified, and that this could have a boomerang effect against the Democrats?
Well, I certainly hope so, and I do see that set up in many of the same ways. I'd like to say that when in the 2016 election, everybody was like, we never thought Trump would win. Nobody would see that. I actually did. I actually posted it up on my Facebook page. One of my degrees is in political science, so I felt I had to make a prediction about 2 weeks before the election. And the way I saw it is because I didn't think anybody would pass. Once they got into that voting booth, I don't think anybody would pass on the chance to have an outsider who can actually win and an actual citizen become president. I thought people would see this as a one-shot opportunity to do that. And then the other thing people always leave out in that election, people don't realize a lot of people, they may have liked Hillary Clinton, but they didn't want Bill Clinton back in that White House for various reasons. If he was in there, he's basically going to be running a lot of the policy. So this year, I see it kind of the same, although I'm a little more concerned this time simply because of the violent rhetoric, the hateful rhetoric that the left is pulling on. They basically always do what they accuse others of doing. So they've been talking since 2016 that somehow Trump stole this election. So that tells me they've been gearing up to steal this election. I hate to be a little bit of a downer here, but my biggest concern is that they've already put it in place because they know that they need to swing certain votes in certain swing states, 70,000 here, 50,000 there, can tilt the election. So I'm really concerned about that. As far as the people go, though, I really do think there's a backlash, and I really think that people are going to come out for Trump and for the Republicans. When I gathered signatures to be on the ballot. I actually went out and did it myself because I wanted to meet the voters, and independent voters can sign on a Republican or either party. And 7 out of 10, I would say, independents would sign my ballot petition knowing that I was a Republican. I had a guy one time on a Democrat on the campaign trail. I gave him my information. He turned back to me and he said, "Don't worry, all the Democrats are voting for Trump. We're just not telling anybody about it." So I think I think they've gone too far. I think people see society at risk, and I think whether you're on the right or the left, there has to be order. And I think this preaching of hatred of our country, it's affecting some, but I'm hoping the middle of the road is still in favor of the United States. It almost seems absurd, like it's a radical statement to say people believe in the country that they live in, but I believe the support is still there, so yeah.
And the remarkable thing is that we've heard for probably since you and I were kids, we heard about the brilliance of the Constitution. And in the last couple of months, the Constitution's not such a good idea anymore. And I think people hear that they may, like the old cigarette commercial, "I'd rather switch than fight."
Right.
I think it's like, I don't want to fight with you. I'm not going to say anything, but that's not what I believe. Right. Nicholas Tutora is with us. He is the Republican candidate for the 9th Congressional District race. We will continue in just a moment. He is with us for the full hour between now and 12 noon today. This is KFNX's Election 2020 coverage as we take in-depth looks at all of the candidacies and find out what the candidates are all about and the issues that are important to them and their issue positions. We will be back in a moment, 13 after 11 on this Sunday morning on Independent Talk, 1100 KFNX. Good morning, Bill Brady on Independent Talk, 1100 KFNX. This is our Election 2020 coverage. We've got an important primary coming up in early August and maybe the most important presidential election of all time coming up in November. And with that, the House and Senate elections are every bit as important in terms of the national foundation. Nicholas Tutora is with us. He is the Republican candidate for the 9th Congressional District race. Let me jump to something here, Nicholas. Greg Stanton, the former mayor of Phoenix, is the current congressman in this district. Has he well served the people of the district?
I don't think so. I mean, not only am I running against him, but I do live in his district, so he is my representative in Congress. And, he not only did he vote for the impeachment, but he's on the Judiciary Committee, so he actually is one of the 23 Democrats that wrote up those articles to go to the floor. The evidence, quote unquote, on the impeachment is non-existent. I mean, they had nothing. There's plenty of establishment Republicans there in the Senate and in Congress who aren't big fans of Donald Trump, and if they would have had a reason, I think they probably would have voted against him. And for Stanton to sit there, when he cast his vote, he referred to Donald Trump as a clear and present danger to the United States. And I just think it's outrageous. I mean, he's alienated 45% of the voters in his district. And then on the flip side, he also had a progressive candidate, Talia Fuentes, knocked off the ballot in 2016, and then she tried to primary him again, and she was initially on, and he also challenged her ballots and got her knocked off. So he's not caring about people on the right in his district. He's not even caring about people on the far left that he claims to represent. I see it, the way I view it is he's looking at it basically as a stepping stone for a run for governor in 2022. If you look at a lot of the things he does, he talks a lot about the Navajo Nation and things that are statewide issues. I mean, it's important, but it's not in CD9. He's not representing the voice of people in CD9. Also, he was the mayor of Phoenix. He was a councilman. He was an assistant DA. So he's basically the prototype of that lifelong career politician. And, he knows how to pander, basically. He's got his photo ops with all his groups that he needs. And, but I don't think he's really in touch with what's going on in the district.
The impeachment vote, and Kyrsten Sinema also turned me off in regard to this. I'm not here to endorse your candidacy today. I'm here to interview you and to help you to tell your story as a candidate through this forum. But recently there was some revelation, I forget whether it was an audio or print form, that James Clapper and John Brennan had both testified under oath. No, there's no evidence that there was any collusion with the Russians.
Right.
Both of them essentially said that.
Right.
CrowdStrike was the consultant for the Democratic National Committee. They did their computer work. The president of CrowdStrike was recently asked, did the Russians hack the Democratic National Committee? He says, I have no idea.
Exactly.
But I can tell you that the bit speed that it came out at could only have happened internally. It could not have happened via the Internet. So when you are possessed with this knowledge and you then still vote to impeach, knowing that the articles of impeachment are fraudulent, to me that is the most unstatesman or stateswoman-like thing you can do. There are people, and I go back to Tip O'Neill or George Mitchell, that if Tip O'Neill was Speaker of the House, there is no impeachment proceeding.
Yeah, correct.
And I think it's important for people ultimately, regardless of what district they represent, whether it's Congress or Senate, it is important to be statesmen first as opposed to partisan hacks first. So forgive me, that's my editorial comment. If you'd like to comment on it, you feel free.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I mean, truthfully, I hate to burst at everybody's bubble, but, the Russians hacked the election, right? We've never seen any evidence of that. Call me old-fashioned, but before there's charges put in place or somebody's accused to overturn a presidency, I kind of would like to see the evidence. And nobody has ever seen the DNC servers. And the words they use, also hacked. I love this one, meddled. The Russians meddled in the election. I think of like a nosy, in-law or something. They meddled in. What exactly did they do? It's also absurd the claim that the Russians put about $100,000 of ads on Facebook and somehow that swung the election. Americans are subject. By the time you're 20, you've seen millions, if not tens of millions, of ads, and these few ads that Vladimir Putin placed, that swung the election. He needs a consulting firm on Madison Avenue if that's the case.
Well, that, and I can tell you that before I came to Phoenix, I headed up a television sales operation in South Florida that had a gigantic internet portal that
Right.
we also sold. The Bahamian Tourist Bureau would spend $300,000 in a month. $100,000 didn't even get our attention.
Exactly.
And so, it's as I understand it, also I think some of it ran after the election.
Right.
So it was just, and that's something that there doesn't seem to be any shame about. But let me take a break here. We'll come back. When we come back, we'll talk more about that. You had talked to me the other day about your concerns about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, civil liberties. We will come back and talk about that with Nicholas Tutora, Republican candidate for the 9th Congressional District race. This is Bill Brady with KFNX's Campaign 2020, Election 2020 coverage. We'll be right back. 26 after 11 o'clock on this Sunday morning. This is KFNX's Election 2020 coverage. Nicholas Tutora is with us. He is the Republican candidate for the 9th Congressional District race. Nicholas, this really has been, and I want to use the word odd, but I'll go beyond. This has really been a bizarre period for the last 3 years.
Yeah, it really has. There's just total breakdown of the structure of our government. The thing that really got me in this race was after Trump won, and I saw that they refused to let him govern. Everything in their power to try to stop him, everything he wanted to do challenging it in court, and we've never had that before. I mean, Nixon had to resign because he attempted to bug one landline old-school phone. You know, the Obama administration used the NSA, FBI, CIA, FISA courts to go after their political, another political candidate and an administration. I mean, it's completely un-American, and the fact that Stanton would lead the charge is just reprehensible. And that alone, to me, would disqualify somebody from holding office.
Well, and the thing is that it doesn't seem to bother anybody. This is the thing that really strikes me is there's wrong is wrong, and it doesn't matter whether it's wrong associated with a D or wrong associated with an R. Wrong is wrong, and I would think people would look at it and say, you know what, I liked Obama, voted for Obama, but this is not right, this is not good, and it doesn't matter what the source of it is, that they should be able to see that issue clearly.
Yeah, well, they're trying to use Trump's personality as their rallying cry to override, the law. And it's outrageous. I mean, who really cares about the individual personality of the president? It's the office of the president that's the most important thing. And really quick, I think, to me, one of the reasons they've been going after Trump and what's so scary about it is whether it's the establishment on the right or the establishment on the left, Donald Trump was the first person who was a citizen who rose up to be president. He needed to be a billionaire to do it, but he did it. And as soon as he did it, they wanted him out. You hear your whole life, anybody could grow up and be president. And as soon as somebody from outside the system did that, they were like, this guy's got to go. This is our show. You're not going to crash our party. And if they get away with it, they're basically telling the American people, you're not allowed to choose who you want for president. You'll choose from our pre-selected group of people, and you won't vary.
Nicholas Tutora is with us. He is Republican candidate for the 9th Congressional District race. We will continue with Mr. Tutora in just a few minutes right after a news update. This is Bill Brady on Independent Talk 1100 KFNX. This is part of our Election 2020 coverage, and we'll continue in a moment.
Independent Talk 1100 KFNX is your headquarters for Election 2020.
Good morning. It's Sunday morning. We are honored to have Nicholas Tutora with us. He is the Republican candidate for the 9th Congressional District race. Nicholas, I should have done this earlier, but for people who, and this is not an insult to anybody, but the way these districts are set up, let us define the district. What is in the 9th Congressional District?
It's a pretty big district, varied. So you've got Central Phoenix area, like Biltmore, Arcadia area. This area that we're in right now, which is like Glendale, 16th Street around there, it goes up to Peoria. You also have Ahwatukee, pretty much all of Tempe with the exception of like airports. There's West Mesa, and you've got South Scottsdale, south of Thomas, and south of Camelback in certain areas. There's a little touch of Paradise Valley in there, and most of Chandler. So it's a wide and varied district. It's a microcosm of the United States, which I do like, because all the issues, all the people, everybody's in CD9. And it's really what people, I think, with the exception of like the downtown area, that's not in the district, but I think when people think in their mind of Metro Phoenix, they're thinking of CD9.
Now, Donald Trump got elected as an outsider, and as a citizen of this country, I think it was a good thing that an outsider could get elected. I don't think that anybody can, unless they're in denial, can say that there has not been considerable interference to his governing from the permanent government in Washington. You're essentially an outsider too. Correct.
Yeah. I've always been involved politically. I'm a pharmacist of 25 years. I was a regional delegate in the American Pharmaceutical Association. When I was back east, I represented New York and all of New England. to the APHA. We drafted legislation. Briefly put my name in the race for the Senate race in 2018. Didn't end up on the ballot because it was a statewide race and just really didn't have the ability to run that race. But yeah, I'm a citizen. I've had people ask me on the trail, like, who are you to run for office? You know, what gives you the right to run for office? Well, I meet the constitutional requirements. I hate to be old-fashioned about it, but, that's what it's about. And I think it's important that we do need citizen voices in government because that's the way the government was really set up. It was set up for for citizens to go to Washington, do their job, pass legislation, help the nation, and then go back and live under the laws that they themselves passed. There's no accountability whatsoever there's the elections, right? But when you look at the way it's all set up, it's set up to favor the people who are already holding power. So I think it's important. And that's another thing with Trump. Even for the people who hate Trump, you see a lot of people who are Democrats who would never run before, but they run because they saw Trump do it. There's a lot of people getting into politics now. It's like, well, if he could do it, I could do it. And I think it's a really welcome thing. He with the Republicans, maybe it was intended. With the Democrats, maybe it was unintended. But I think overall, that's a very positive effect that he's had. And that's what I also tell Democrats. Even if you don't like Donald Trump, you should support him because he's more like you than these paid-for politicians that you're voting for. He's a citizen. You're a citizen. If they take him out, they're basically taking you out, too, regardless of what your stance is.
Now, you have two opponents in the primary. How would you size up the opposition in the primary race? Well,
Dave Giles is running. Again, this is his third time running. The last time he lost the primary 2-1. He lost by about 15,000 votes to Steve Ferrara. I don't see any way that he can carry the district. Plus, he doesn't even live in the district. And to win this district, you need to appeal to a large demographic. You have ASU in the middle of the district. You have to be able to inspire young people. I don't see that he's going to be able to do that. My other opponent is Sam Wang. He's a Chandler councilman. He is posting online that he would support Biden, that Trump is basically the worst thing that ever happened in this country. I think he's, hoping that Trump falls apart and maybe he'll catch a break or something like that. But he's certainly not there to represent the Republican Party. And also, he cannot beat Stanton. I am the only Republican in the field who can beat Greg Stanton in the general election because I'm building the coalition that we need in this district. We can't just run somebody who appeals only to the Republican base, because if we do that, we lose. If we got every Republican vote in the district, we'd still lose. So we need to build the right coalition, which I'm doing.
Is Stanton beatable?
He is beatable. He's very vulnerable. This used to be Sinema's district from the time it was created in 2012. And she's kind of like a rock star in their party. But Stanton's really not. Stanton's like the ultimate typical backroom politician going along to getting along. So he doesn't really have – I don't hear great enthusiasm for him when I'm out on the trail. The people who say, oh, I like Greg, are usually people who know him, maybe personally. He helped me with something. He's a friend of mine or something like that. But truthfully, I hear some very negative things about him on the trail from people that I talk to. People like, oh, you're running against Stanton? Oh, well, you got my vote. And I don't really want to go into some of the negative things they say, but they're unsolicited. And a lot of people don't even know who he is. So I don't really think I think he's very beatable. I think he definitely is beatable.
This is Bill Brady on Independent Talk, 1100 KFNX. Nicholas Tutora is with us. He is the Republican candidate for the 9th Congressional District race. Primary coming up on August 4th.
Correct, August 4th. The early balloting comes out July 8th. Yeah. So those early ballots come out soon.
And we will continue with Nicholas in just a moment. This is part of KFNX's Election 2020 coverage as we help you get to know the candidates, their personalities, their opinions, and their issue positions. We will be right back 20 before 12 on 1100 KFNX. Good morning, Bill Brady on Independent Talk 1100 KFNX. Nicholas Tutora is with us. He is a Republican candidate for the 9th Congressional District race. This is part of our Election 2020 coverage as we put the spotlight on the candidates who are running in these races and give you an opportunity to get to know them a little bit better and their issue positions. One important issue right now, Nicholas, and it's swept the country, is this whole thing about defunding the police.
Right. It's so dangerous. And I mean, if this doesn't show you how the leftists, Marxists are looking to overturn our country, I don't know what will. I mean, and I think this is really a bridge too far. I think everybody, and whether you're on the right or the left or in the middle, you need secure police. You need to know you're living in a safe society. To me, defunding the police is anti-women. It's anti-family. I mean, it's anti-everybody. But, I mean, in particular, you're putting women at risk. I mean, I hate to be crude, but I mean, it's going to be a spike in sexual assault. Who's going to manage that? Who's going to control that? And, you know, yeah, there are some police where things happen. There are some, you know.
Let me just add a comical moment. I told you like half an hour ago, I don't know what I did with my phone. Now I do.
There it is.
Go ahead. I am sorry.
That's okay. But defunding the police, I mean, it's just so dangerous to everybody in the country. I mean, there are some police, obviously. The George Floyd case was a tragedy, and people should be punished accordingly. But by and large, the vast majority of police officers are doing a job that is very difficult, and they're doing it honorably and professionally, and we have to support them. Without police, there's no society. I think it also is a part of little by little over time, you know, this attack on men, masculinity. All you hear is toxic masculinity. All the negatives of men are always talked about, but not the virtues, you know, like heroism and being valiant and protective. We need to bring that back in this country and really support our police.
Well, the crazy thing to me about it is, I used to say to people, because in the Republican Party, there is a sense that social programs are things we shouldn't do. Free market, free market economy and personal responsibility and stuff like that. But you know what? If you didn't have Social Security, you know what you'd have? Social Security. And the same thing is true with law enforcement. If you didn't have police, you'd have police. In every country in the world.
Right.
Small towns, big cities, every country in the world has police departments. You are not going to do away with police departments. Maybe there's some initiatives that you can do, but police departments are like the light switch over there on the wall. When you need it, you just need to flip the switch and hope that they are there with a very quick response time to deal with whatever it is that you're dealing with. Right.
You know, and one of the things that's also such a misnomer that they love to say, there's more people in America that are incarcerated, and they make it sound like it's a tragic thing. And yes, obviously, you know, we don't necessarily, but it also means we have better policing. Doesn't mean there's less crime in these other countries. It just means that there's no enforcement. There's no law enforcement. So yeah, there's more people maybe in our system because our police are actually doing a better job at solving crimes.
What types of reforms could there be? You know, I think one of the central perceptions in the country today is there's a problem with police. Are there any things that current police departments or current police philosophy should address?
I think really, I mean, some of the ideas that they have when they say defund, some say redirect some funds maybe into like social workers. I don't want social workers responding to calls, but they could possibly get some people like that to go along with police, although that's dangerous too because it's basically you're setting up a hostage situation. If an unarmed person shows up with the police, somebody might grab that person as a hostage. So, and I really don't think it's the police's job to be social workers. I think the reform I see is really getting behind the police again. You should know how to behave around a police officer. You should not be resisting arrest from a police officer, no matter who you are. I think it's intolerable that police have to tolerate somebody screaming in their face, an inch away from their face, and the police now have to stand there and take that? No, I disagree. Maybe the reform has to be with the society learning to respect the police.
Very good point. Gee, that hasn't been heard on the air anywhere in the mainstream media recently. And I say that because I think, you know, when you look at these encounters, how many of them escalate because the person does not respect the law enforcement officer and the role of the law enforcement officer.
Absolutely. And, it's one of the main things that I intend to do when I get to Washington. We need to push back against all these voices like AOC and Tlaib and their hateful rhetoric, anti-Semitic rhetoric. I mean, they go unchecked. And you've got grown men cowering, afraid to take on these people. I have no fear of it whatsoever. Bring it on. I mean, because the point for liberty has to be made. We're not going to roll over to be politically correct.
Well, and that's the other thing I said about Nancy Pelosi on my afternoon program from 5 to 7 p.m. every day. One of the things I said was that she failed the leadership test because I don't believe that Pelosi, at the end of the day, wanted to fall in with the squad or the far left wing of her party. I think she wanted to keep her speakership. And that's one of the things that I look at and say, hey, you should have some guiding principles that are non-negotiables, and you don't go against your guiding principles, and if you do, fall on your damn sword.
Absolutely. I mean, so much of what's going on is a power grab. One of the things that really infuriates me is the way they try to divide us by race. I had this on my website long before all this racial conflict broke out, but they don't care about anybody's race. The left, they don't care. They just want to use it as a way of dividing people, because if you could divide people by something that's fixed, like your race, then you have a permanent web issue. A black person can never be white. A white person can never be black. So if they could keep us divided. And the other thing that's so scary is these revolutions, other than the American Revolution that was based in liberty and Washington stepped aside, all these other Marxist revolutions, or even the French Revolution, they end up eating each other alive, because today you're on with the in crowd with the mob, tomorrow you're on the out. So the left better be very careful about getting what they actually are hoping for.
Not to mention the fact that the economies of true socialist countries are moribund.
Right, exactly. I mean, and that's what they're looking to do. They're trying to bring us down from within. All of a sudden, they had to stop our economy completely. And while it was down, they filled in some rioting there and burned down a lot of businesses. They're making sure that they destroy the United States economy.
We're going to take a break here. When we come back with Nicholas Tutora, Republican candidate for the 9th Congressional District race, I want to touch on the whole COVID case and how that's been handled, not just here in Arizona, but around the country. Nicholas Tutora is a Republican candidate for the 9th Congressional District. We will continue with him in a moment. This is Bill Brady on Independent Talk, 1100 KFNX. Good afternoon. Good morning. I'm pushing things. Bill Brady on Independent Talk, 1100 KFNX. Nicholas Tutora is with us. He is a Republican candidate for the 9th Congressional District race. I want to cover one topic quickly before we give Nicholas an opportunity to do a summation on this program. COVID, how would you evaluate how it has all been handled?
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm a pharmacist of over 25 years, and the handling of this, I just don't agree with it. There's 0.000 like 4% of the United States population has died of COVID. Much smaller than 1%. I mean, my mom, unfortunately, was one of those. She was 88 years old in a nursing home back in New York. She had Alzheimer's. She had underlying conditions. So it's really affecting people with underlying conditions, the elderly. And to me, one of the most despicable things of all the fake news that they've told over the years is the story about hydroxychloroquine. Hydroxychloroquine has been dispensed since the 1940s. It's safe. It does have some side effects, but they're not these drastic, terrible side effects that they talk about. And it's showing promise for treating COVID, but yet they try to squash it. They'd rather people be sick, the enemies of Trump, than him be right. They want to keep this thing going. I ran into a guy on the campaign trail. He referred to it as the election year virus. So I'm not making light of it. It has to be. We have to be careful. We have to be treated. But the reaction, the hysteria, the fear that they're trying to promote in people, it's all part of trying to make mail-in elections and tilt the election. So they're using it as a tactic. It's not really being dealt with properly as a health issue. It's being used as a political weapon.
We've got a couple of minutes before the end of the program. Wanted to give you an opportunity to present a summation to kind of tie all this together and to give people, in fact, in particular, the independents and Democrats in the district, but for you to make your campaign pitch as to why people should vote for you on August 4th.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, as I said, I really think this is the most important election in our country, maybe in the history of our country. The future of freedom and liberty for everybody is on the line. One of the things I intend to do as the congressman in this district is to represent all the voices in the district. We need independents. We need centrist Democrats to win the district. And I hear their voices. I think, like I said, it's reprehensible that a congressman would shut out the voices of many in his district. And I think all people, regardless of where they stand, regardless of their race, regardless of their sexual orientation, I think they want to live free, and I think they want to live under the promises of the Constitution. We don't need to start to reinvent that. So I would ask the people who, even the ones who dislike Trump or dislike the Republicans, think about who's really going to preserve your freedom. That's what you need going forward. And I am the best candidate in this race to defeat Stanton, and also to really represent the people, to return the government to the citizens. So if you want to find out more about me, you can go to my website, which is Tutora. That's Tutora, Tutora2020.com. You can go there, find out about me. We could certainly use financial support, help us get the word out. But I'm looking forward to running a very strong race and representing all the voices in my district.
Well, best of luck to you. We've been speaking with Nicholas Tutora, Republican candidate for the 9th Congressional District race, and the election is coming up on August 4th. And you had mentioned that the early voting
starts July 8th. Those early ballots come out just a couple days from now.
So we hope that this has been helpful for you. The purpose of our election 2020 coverage is to give you a longer look at the candidates, hear what they have to say, get a sense of their personalities, their positions in regard to issues. These forums will continue until the November elections every Sunday morning at 10 o'clock and at 11 o'clock. Nicholas, thanks for joining us. We hope to see you again soon.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.
All right, we are back after the news with a brand new program dealing with pet training and dog training. That's coming up next. We'll have that for you right after the 12 noon news.
I'm Nicholas Tutora, and I approve this message. Paid for by Tutora for Congress.